Delighted today to be joined by John Mooney, the head of UX for Xwerx. And we're going to be talking a bit about the inChargeCo-Design journey and co-design in general. So welcome, John. Delighted to have you here.
Delighted to be here.
Very good, thank you. Well, we start with, I suppose, how we get into inCharge or how
That'd be great.
inCharge.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'll ask the question, what is
yeah.
inCharge?
Well, inCharge is a care platform for people and families to manage their own care across small care teams. And I suppose it was founded on my lived experience of putting a personal budget in place for my eldest daughter, Georgia, who has an intellectual disability and no speech, and really discovered that there was no person-centered, family-facing tech that could help me along that journey. And I suppose I couldn't quite believe that there wasn't already tech there. And there were many solutions, but they were mostly designed for service providers or agencies or systems, and really not just people. So
Mm,
that's why we decided to start with inCharge. Um, and I suppose one of the things that's really important, I suppose, is that it's across, it's for any care need and it's for any care related team. But
mm,
specifically, we started along self-directed care, where
mm,
I have become an employer and employ personal assistants to support Georgia day to day. And so we have a small team of three PAs, and then we have our family and we have other people involved in Georgia's care. So it's
mm,
how to communicate and coordinate across all of those people.
mm.
And it's really like running a business on the side, only you don't get paid.
Some serious management there.
Yeah, it is. There. I suppose and we didn't start with the tech. Tech wasn't our first thought. It was really the problem that we were
Mm,
trying to solve for families like ours, and their lives and managing care is really complex. But
mm,
like the system itself, but at the person level, it's as complex. So it was really starting to unpick the complexity and seeing, is there something that we could we solve part of that big problem and at the person and family level.
yeah. And I suppose it started out as something and then it evolved. How did it evolve? I mean, how did it start and then move on, or as an app?
As an app, yeah, so it started really with research. I did all the rookie mistakes, that founders, first time founders in their mid 40s
Yeah.
make. The probably young people in their mid teens or 20s also make. But I gave up my job with about 6 months in. I went part time first, and then I gave up my job. And then I did a few accelerators, pre-accelerators, and they were really good for giving structure, particularly around customer discovery. So
Yeah.
that was really helpful. And I did extensive conversations with people and families, with stakeholders, in the social care sector, with PAs, with local authorities who are responsible for social care in England. I also did research here in Ireland, and I did some internationally as well.
Mm,
And the reason I suppose we focused in England was self-directed supports are more established there than they are here in Ireland. So it was learning from, better practice and more established systems. So that's the how we started. But I suppose in my career path before that, it was always about working across multiple stakeholders. So I was quite used to that. But what I wasn't used to, it was a completely new sector. While Georgia has been in the disability, she has a disability since she was born. So we've known a bit about the sector, but it was a completely new career path for me. So along with learning and research in the sector, I was also kind of educating myself.
mm,
So that was interesting, probably a double whammy. And I always knew that it was going to be a complex problem, and that because I've been working in that stakeholder engagement space before, I'm quite good at spotting the kind of the synergies or where they kind of overlap. So that I never thought would come in helpful, but it actually did. So I had lots and lots of research before I got to the point of design. And I had really focused on my worry as an employer of PAs was worrying about the money.
Mm,
Um, and I thought that was the problem that needed to be solved. But the whole effort around co-design and research showed me that it was really the continuity of care, and the coordination of the small teams was the more pressing challenge.
mm,
So I suppose when we came to building the MVP, it was a deliberate. I wouldn't have called it a pivot at the time, but it was a pivot away from the money and more into the problem that we'd uncovered. Um, and we had spoken to pretty much everybody you could think of: influencers, advocates, government, local government, people with disabilities, families supporting them. But we hadn't actually spoken to personal assistants. And it was a research designer who spotted that. And that was a blind spot, I suppose. So we did extra research then along that to understand their point of view. If they were going to be using an app, what would motivate them and what was their needs from it. Um, and that was, I suppose, one of the biggest lessons was, who was missing from the research. And we filled that gap, and that really fundamentally kind of closed the loop of all the people within that care team.
okay. We'll take a small break there.
Yep.
That's good. So that's a lovely big chunk, what's called of, how what inCharge is, how it evolved, that sort of thing. We haven't got on to talking about co-design. Really, you've touched on it, you communicate about it. And I suppose the best thing to do now is talk about co-design. And if you're happy enough with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see, what would be a good idea?
But
Are
well,
you still?
I could say to you, there's a lot of, there's so much talk about co-design now. What's the difference between that and consultation, or what actually is it? How about that?
Yeah, I was thinking though, have you finished everything you wanted to say as regards things that have happened before Xwerx happened, before the Xwerx involvement? Have you covered all the
Um,
bits?
yeah, well, I think we were going to go on from if we go from the Xwork story on to design, and so kind of building it.
Okay, so starting on the Xwerx bit now then, so that's grand. Okay, so then maybe you can ask me about, you can say what you just said there, and then I'll see if I can elaborate on that.
Yeah. So, John, it seems everywhere now that you look, there's reference to co-design. What actually is it, and what makes it different from consultation?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, co-design is really about designing with users, not for users. And in most traditional situations, what happens is that uh, people might come to a company like ourselves, like a UX agency, wherever it might be, and they would ask for help in designing something, and they would give over the information about what they need. We would go off and do some user research and come back with that. From there, we would design a product based upon our user research. And there's a certain level of disconnect in a lot of cases where you're not communicating with the users all the time. And co-design is an extension of that, by you're constantly involving the users themselves and communicating with users, iterating to the problems, solving the problems at the same time with the user. So it's user focused, working with users all the time, and that's what we do. So, and that's what we've been doing since we started this project itself. So in relation to our involvement, we did a lot of research at the very start, working with yourselves and conducting user interviews and creating customer journey maps. We did a storyboard to better establish our visualized process that families go through in organising care. And we also did a service blueprint, which gave us a higher perspective of the overall system. you know, with all this design, we were able to create a UX vision for yourselves that you could then use to communicate your ideas to others and to help the conversation around how the app might evolve. I think that's more or less what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, and the storyboard to me was so clever because it looked at it at such a bigger level than I was looking at it. And I always think whenever I arrived, I was introduced to Xwerx, via an agency that weren't able to help me. So we've had such goodwill of people introducing you, saying, I can't help you, but this person might. And I had this like a diagram of that had originally been hand drawn, but then we got it, printed out so that it was color coded and all. Somebody else did that for me, and so I had this diagram, all this knowledge and conversation in my head, and this really clear vision, as you say, of how it should work. And to get it out of there and through the process of the workshops and the user research, and it was just amazing. It was like a relief, if I'm being honest, that it was downloaded somewhere else and it made sense. But I have to say, Sean really put me through my paces when he met me first. He really rigorously tested my assumptions, and he interrogated everything. He broke it apart and came at me in different ways to make sure that what I was saying was, valid. And he was right to challenge. But it really made me learn how to defend some of the knowledge that I had gained, and with evidence. But part of also what I had missed was that, I didn't trust myself at that point to say that this is evidence, whereas I felt that I had to always get everything externally validated. But I've
Yeah.
become more brave, but that's experience,
But you've come with such a level of experience. I mean, the fact that the amount of user research you did, and the overall research you did into the environment in which you're and the community in which you're involved in, what a wealth of knowledge. We would consider to be something like a subject matter expert. You would be someone of that quality, and perfect kind of person to fit into a co-design workflow, because you're meeting the community themselves, you're talking to the community themselves, you're engaging with them, and then your knowledge was able to help us to map out that flow, to sort of come up with the storyboard, to give you that sense of it. But it's only because of the knowledge you were able to bring and the research that you had done up to this point. You're a perfect fit for actually making this successful.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I will always have a place for Rachel, who was the person that we were supporting in the Figma, and Grace was her mom. So they'll always have be important people in my life. And I think I have to say that Figma opened doors for me for honestly 2 years, open conversations. It allowed people to see the vision. Some I've learned as well over the period of this work that not everybody can see the vision. Some people have to see something tangible, whereas other people, when you're describing something, they can imagine it, and others just need something to prompt them, which is just people's different way of processing. One of the things I also learned during that process was, as well as testing this out with families, the Figma and the vision, we were
Yeah.
prototyping all along ourselves in George's team, and I didn't call it prototyping. We were using different apps,
That's what it was, though. It was prototyping. You were doing all, and it's the other element that's really important as well for the reason why this co-design effort is so successful. It is because you have the design language and learned it over time. You didn't know you had it, but then you discovered, oh yeah, we've been doing this all along, and we've got a fairly good knowledge of what we need to do. And actually, we're quite close to the user, and we're actually able to communicate and do user research, and we're able to iterate the concept through with the client, with the users, and get a real sense of how they really use it, and then communicate back to the design team. And that's really useful. And that's how co-design really becomes a success, because it's been able to communicate on a level in which everyone understands.
Yeah.
That's the most.
Yeah. Yeah. That's and I think when we're talking about we are saying about the communicating in the language, you referenced it there a while ago when we were chatting before we come on the call, about language being so important.
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing, that's an ongoing learning for all of us. We try to keep it as human, as natural as possible.
And us as well. Absolutely, us as well, because one of the things we as designers, we can make a lot of assumptions about how things work, and the right way to do things or the wrong way to do things. But times we don't have a true understanding of the level of stress that people might be under, and that the language itself might make that stress increase as opposed to decrease. So it was very important that you're able to communicate back to us to say, no, we need to change that language slightly, make it a little less dense, make it a little lighter, because people want to be able to approach something quickly, effectively, and get the job done, that kind of thing. So that's been really useful. Things that we weren't able to consider within the community in which you were involved in. Again,
Yeah.
it's about the fact that you're a subject matter expert. You've got a real sense of understanding what's going on. You've real lived experience, which is essential to getting something that's useful to people who actually need to use the product.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think too, when we look back as well, we were so fortunate to have Sarah, who's an expert in accessibility as well, because we wanted to be accessible by design and deliberately intuitive, to make the complex more simple.
Mm.
And what the first thing she said, your color palette isn't accessible. I was like, oh no, I spent ages on that. But we accepted her recommendation. We can't say we want to be accessible, but you're going to fail in the first test. So we changed it.
No, no, and that is one of the key things. It's about the fact of knowing that there has to be a certain amount of regulation as well, that you have to meet certain minimum standards, so as many people can use the application as possible, and having that accessibility standards in place is really vital. And Sarah, of course, our expert in accessibility, no better woman.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky to have her, and very lucky that we've learned so much from her as well. I mean, I'm learning from her all the time, so that's pretty
Yeah.
good as well.
Yeah.
And she's totally invested as well in the success of the application as well. Again, it comes back to the fact that the code design, the reason it's working so well is because it's working with a designer who has an understanding of what needs to be achieved as regards the technical aspects of it and the design aspects of it, the accessibility side of the things, and at the same time being able to communicate that effectively with the people who have to manage and run that application, and make it work for people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So two ways. I suppose it's that continuous loop, even back to the development team, and saying, no, we're not talking about users, we're talking about people. And them accepting that.
yeah, exactly, and it's because we all have a common understanding of the design language, is that we're not talking about users as a general term. We're talking about people using the product. Like a personal assistant, or
Yeah.
a teacher, or an administrator, whatever it might be. It's always putting ourselves into those people's shoes, and having empathy for their daily life and what they have to do, and they're the most important things, as well as keeping that in our minds all the time when we go through this iterative process. And it brings me on nicely to the next thing, which is about continuous user research, prototyping.
Yeah.
I'm
We've
going to
done
take a
so
break there.
much. Yeah.
So I'm going to chop it there, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little bit of talk about the next bit, which is the user research. This is the ongoing stuff, right? It's about the fact of saying you've basically taken over the research side of things, and that you're
Yeah.
communicating that back to us all the time, and that's how you're able to, we're able to maintain that relationship. If you know what I'm
Yeah.
getting at there, it's kind of
Yeah.
like because we're not talking. We as the designers ourselves, as UX people, are not talking directly to the users. You are.
Yeah.
So we rely upon you then and your team to be able to communicate with your users and to present in front of them, and then come back with ideas and feedback that will allow us then to refine it, the product itself.
Yeah.
So I was going to talk a little bit about that, but there was something that got my attention, was something to do with the fact that you had got in front of, I think it was in the email you sent, it was about the fact of getting in front of 70 people and presenting.
70. Aye. So we launched our first live, the first working prototype at an event of 70 people, and I hadn't actually seen it working until that event. It didn't work. So I can talk about, there was no plan B. It was, we had created this scenario. I'll tell the story, but it was
So,
yeah.
so let me just bring you into that one then. So this brings me on nicely to the user research and the ongoing involvement we have between ourselves in the co-design process. And one of the things is that I find really fascinating is how you originally got into this iterative loop concept of, doing testing, putting in front of people, framing the problem, making the prototype, putting it in front of people, getting feedback, iterating. That's continuous loop kind of thing. So maybe you can give me, how did that come about?
Well, and just to take a step back, the previous job I had been working in, or had been in co-production, which was about people and care, people with lived experience of disability and carers having an equal say and equal, in a partnership with other stakeholders, on an equal basis. And one of the things that was really prominent or important to me was about closing that feedback loop. So
Yeah.
going back to people to say, this is what your contribution resulted in, or we didn't do that because. So I've always had that in my mind, but I suppose in terms of the app itself, when we're filling in applications and pitches, we're asked how many, co-design sessions, or how do you know your user research is sound. I've lost count of how many sessions I've done. That's the truth. We've done them online, we've done them individually. I've done
You can never
workshops
do
and
enough.
no, Antrim, Galway, Dublin, London, Manchester, you name it, we've done them. And you always unearth something else. That's the thing, even if there's you get, it's nice when you get the insight that that you're on the right track, but you always learn something else. So whenever we went to build the first prototype, we had a few false starts, as you do, and we're like all self-funded and doing it just on a shoestring. And as a non-technical founder, I was so lucky to meet Dan, who thinks beyond just the product. He thinks that, in the bigger business and how we could scale really from the beginning, like I wanted. But when we did the first prototype, we launched it at an event in Birmingham, I think it was, or maybe it was Manchester. I can't remember now if it was Birmingham or Manchester. And there were 70 people in the room. They were the Social Care Institute for Excellence. It was their away day, and it was a lived experience innovation that we were talking about. So I said to the team, let's use this to the most that we can. So we created many care teams and scenarios and role play, and every table got to be a personal assistant or the supported person or the carer. And we worked through this session. It was only about an hour and a half. And right up to that time, that night before I went to bed, there was we were still having glitches and bugs. I got up the next morning to do the testing, and there was a guy with a Kango in the next room. They were doing renovations. I was like, come off it. So I went into that room to do this live launch, and I hit the button and it worked, but there was no plan B. It was,
Class.
but we used that feedback, so they were all really generous in their feedback on, you know, the usability, the functionality. They knew it was the very raw first version, but they could see, you know, where it could go. So we used that, and that was 2024. And then it
Mm,
was 2025 then when we launched the minimum viable product live, and that's now and commercially available. But that was such a hard decision, I have to say, to what to put into the MVP, because in 2022 I had this vision, this Figma that had all the whole where it could go and, you know, how it could look. And then we had to strip back to say, right, what is the very smallest thing that we can afford to build and build from there? So, as
yeah,
I say, it was around the continuity of care.
yeah,
And there were solutions around the money. They mightn't be everybody's cup of tea. They're getting better all the time. But we were feeling that we don't want to do something that's already being done. We want to do something
yeah,
that's not being done,
yeah,
and that was around the continuity of care. But we have our family of co-designers now. So the families that have bought the app also will get asked, do they want to join a WhatsApp group? And when we come to feature development or prioritization, we would you know, put it into the group and ask them what, you know, which is the most important, and how to show you how serious we are about the co-design. I have been outvoted a number of times, so the thing that I would like to have seen built wasn't built.
yeah,
So, you know, we are true to our principles, and I know for Sarah too, you know, we were trying to show the potential of what things could look like. So she would share, you know, mock-up screens. And we were very careful to say to people, this is not the finished product, and, you know, but
yeah,
this is what we're thinking of. Is this the right around the right lines? And
yeah,
that's all been really useful. So I suppose whenever we still talk about co-design, I think some people presume then that we're not finished. But for me, it's a process. It's like a quality assurance thing.
oh, you're saying all the sweet things of me. That's
Ah,
uh that's the stuff we love to hear. It's never it you should always have this sense that, you know, you can always iterate and make better. Once it doesn't get in the way of actually producing the product, but if you can, you know, being able to communicate with your users all the time, I mean, that's gold. That is gold.
yeah. And you know what? It's not even about features always. It's sometimes it's just about um uplifting you. You know, we needed some content yesterday for a webinar that we're coming up with or it's up and coming in the next month or so. And we wanted to show that they we know we've been deliberately careful to meet the needs of young people, like children, as well as young adults, as well as older people, that our infrastructure has been designed in a way to be agnostic of any fiscal systems, you know, that it can work in any setting.
Yeah,
So, you know, I think that's something that people don't necessarily understand when they see how simple it is. It's deliberately so. There's a lot going on, as you know,
yeah,
behind the scenes to make it work. But when we went into the group yesterday to get examples, they all immediately came back, you know, saying, I'll give you an example of my young person. I'll tell you about my grandparents. You know, so there's more than just a co-design. They're just a community. You know, they send me messages of support randomly. It always seems to be when you're having a really bad day, somebody says, "Oh, this has just helped me so much today." And it
right.
just, I think, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a real sense of, yeah, I think I'm doing the right thing. That's
Yeah.
the one thing you
Yeah.
always. sense of, I'm on the right track. That's the most important thing involved. There was another interesting conversation as well. It was to do with it was one of the last points you made and the email. It was to do with AI, and I was interested in that. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I suppose we are looking at AI, and we're going to take an ethical approach to AI, but there's so much talk about it. There's two, it's just like so polarizing. There's this fear, and then there's this possibility. And I
Mm,
think if you take the ethical approach with the right guardrails, then we can do something really good with it. But for me, there's things that AI can do, and there's things that AI can't do.
yeah,
So it can speed up tasks 100%. It can help or almost eliminate administration for the families, in our app, and it can generate insights. And but it has to be all relationship based as well, so it can't build trust.
mm,
That's a human quality, and that's something that you have to earn. It can't read the room, so quite often when you're doing a session or co-design or presenting, there's people that'll take part, and there's people who have something to say but don't put their hand up. So you have to be able to adapt and adjust, and maybe help that person out to say what they have to say, because it could be something really important that could change the whole course of direction. I know that AI is looking to be more empathic, but I don't know, you can feel energy from people, and I think you can, I don't know, does it get teary? I doubt it. And I think for me, while it can learn, obviously, but there's such complexity in a care relationship. The care sector is so complex, but the care relationship is also so complex. So really micro things can mean a huge,
yeah.
or make a huge difference in somebody's day. So that's for me where I sit with AI. I think what we're trying to do is support and scaffold the relationships, and not replace them. What's your take?
I, yeah, I find it interesting. I got sent an article there yesterday about the fact of AI in the care industry going forward, and it's amazing how much actual knowledge is already in the care that's in the care industry is actually being hoovered up by AI.
Mhm.
They've done a lot of analysis about different ways that care is maintained, but it's really, as you say, it's very much from a systems perspective as opposed to an individual's perspective. And then, it's one of the things and it's one of the things I'm really enjoying about working with inCharge is that it's about the person, it's about the care of that individual. And while there can be analysis and statistics about how people can use the particular product or have a sense of, all the knowledge that they might gather, it doesn't actually. Every person is an individual, and that's my thing as well. I think there's always going to be a way to make things faster from a perspective of, you might be getting responses to a survey, that kind of thing, and you may be able to analyze that stuff very quickly. But as regards the individual care of an individual, I don't know. I would agree with you. I don't know how far away we are from the empathetic side of things. I don't think empathy is something that's going to happen within our lifetime. But
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. I think
yeah,
it's down to the fact of the amount of computing power required.
yeah,
There was a mention of using robots in the care environment. And I was kind of going, yeah, you need a very big robot. You need a lot of power to actually have a robot doing that job. And then as a parent, would you like a robot to be taking care of
yeah. So
your
that, and I
parent?
think it's happening in some other parts of the world already, but that's
I don't
time
know.
and
How would
task.
you feel about that? Is
Oh,
that
not at
something?
all. Not at all. No, I don't feel that that's appropriate. For me, that's time and task. That's something that That's just a job to be done. Whereas what we're looking about is, all of the families that we know that are using the InCharge right now, and like we've over 24,000 care hours logged, from the team members. Um, all of them say our the person we love does not fit in a box. They know they don't tick this one category. One
Yeah,
size does not fit all. And
yeah,
if we're trying to help people live well in their own communities, then it needs to be a more personal approach.
yeah.
I believe. So I'm all for the technology supporting where it can and uplifting and making things simpler and easier. But I'm not for it. Um, Replacing those human relationships that people, loneliness is one of the biggest things. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
older people. Yeah. So whether that's a
Yeah,
care, right.
no, that's you just bring up an interesting one is about the loneliness side of things as well. Yeah, it's that uh, how do you need that human touch? I'm sorry, I'm of that belief you need that human touch. There has to be some bit of it there. And
Yeah,
I don't know if I get a person on this side of the screen sort of saying how are you and all that, and that being a not a real human being. I don't know. The micro interactions that you mentioned, you know, humans pick them up, and
yeah,
they see those the little twitches or the little, the turn of the mouth, that kind of thing. Can
yeah,
an AI? I don't know.
yeah.
I,
And
that's
then
the
and just say, would you like a cup of tea? I have a few extra minutes. Would you like, you know, yeah. I think, yeah,
I don't know if it'd be able to do co-design. I think co-design is there's going to be something that's achieved with the likes of yourselves and ourselves. And again, I stress how much the reason why co-design works this way is because you have the knowledge, the user experience knowledge now, got the understanding of the language that's communicated back and forth between your users and us as a design agency. So like uh, this is essential to how the success is maintained. And the fact that you're doing that user research all the time, again and again, that's gold. That
yeah.
validates you as a person who is what's called is able to communicate effectively about how co-design really works.
Mm. And I actually think, John, in the longer term, that investment now will save so much in development that either was unnecessary or in the wrong field. That we're so sure that we're meeting the needs of the people we're serving.
Yeah,
Because we're asking them all the time.
yeah,
It's not periodically. It's weekly.
yeah. No, that's it, and I think you need to maintain that pace. I know it's kind of hard to sort of go, oh, do we have to reiterate through this again, or do we have to do another session? But they are just so overwhelmed, and you know that yourself. They're so
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
put it with the people, get them to use it, get them a sense of it, and then if there needs to be any major design changes or something needs to come on, talk to us. We'll see where we can go from there. But I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. And we're excited to reveal our new product very soon as well that you were parachuted in to help with. We were so
Yeah, that was a joy. Actually, I really enjoyed it. And it's great to work with people who actually care. That's the wonderful thing. So, but I enjoyed it because I like those really fun scaling up projects where it's just you've gone from the product you had and making it bigger and becoming something more. I don't know if you want to say much more about it, but you know, uh,
I think
the
we'll
new
leave it
product.
for there. Oh yeah. It'll be announced
Okay.
by the time we put this out, but you will see.
Yeah, yeah.
Hoping to go live now. The intention is to go live on Monday. So no stress this
No
weekend.
stress, no stress. I think it'd be great. It'd be great. Yeah, I know. I think you're doing a great job, and the fact that the design itself, I think it looks great. I'm looking forward to seeing how it progresses, how it evolves. I think it's just wonderful. No,
Yeah, well, you'll be
I
hearing
just say
back
that 'cause-
as soon as
I'm not
I
saying that because
onboard.
I had involvement in it. I'm saying that because what's called it's just it is a good product. That's all.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, it matters. I suppose that you learn through working with different people too, that you learn who gets your style or who gets your values, and that, like, when you find that, that's really precious, I think, to me. So that's, I think, part of that strong working relationship, that you can be honest and say, that I don't think that's the right thing, or I can say, look, this is what they're telling us. And we can meet in the middle then, which we've had to do as well, because there's things that functionally have to work and they just,
Oh yeah.
behind the scenes.
Is there anything else that you might want to discuss? I think we
The
covered
the only thing we didn't do was the standout moments.
it. Yeah. So, Karen, what are your standout moments?
For me, my standout moments are definitely the first Figma,
Oh,
the first MVP demo live, um, the first positive feedback from families in the first week when we put it out. I got a text message from a mum saying, this is a game changer for my mental health. And that to me was really important. And then seeing people using it every day, seeing the statistics grow, that's standing out, because now it's out there. It's trading. It's there. People are using it in their teams every day. So that for me is the standout. And I do have to pinch myself um sometimes and go, do you know what, we've actually brought a product to life, from a like a problem we spotted, and back nearly 6 years ago.
mm, it's incredible. I mean, but yeah, I think that sometimes you probably don't give yourself enough credit about how big a journey you've gone on. Because if you think back to when you started and where you are now, I mean, oh my God, that is such a journey.
I always think I'm further ahead than I am, but and I'm still guilty of that. But no, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and for me, um, like it's been that conduit, or that accessibility for families, making it easy for them to use, and for them to
Mm,
say that it's made their day easier is really what it's all about. And
mm,
Xwerx and inCharge are very good at doing that together.
yeah. And it's down again to the fact of, the co-design is such an effective methodology to apply, which is very simple. It's not just to the about users, it's with users. That's the key. That's the most important thing. Uh, I was just thinking back to something, my own, back in the day when I was a graphic designer back in a long time ago. I remember doing my first CD cover and seeing it in the shops, you
Wow.
know, and that was like, wow. So that's the same feeling as that, like, there it is, and it's kind of like it's in the real world and people are using it, and that's the same. I'm sure that's the same for you. You're saying, there it is. People are using it. It's and it's making a difference in people's lives. That's the most important
Yeah, yeah. Fab. That's
thing.
did that band make it?
They did actually. What's called, but it's back in the day. It was all dance music, and no, I used to do all the. I actually used to do all the designs for the nightclubs. I designed all the flyers for nightclubs back in years and years ago in Dublin. So yeah, and when you see your stuff in clubs, you see stuff around you, then you get used to it. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, I've done that. But
Yeah.
what you're doing, it makes such a difference. That's what and for us, it's a joy to be involved in it because your thing is making such a difference. That's the great thing.